Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another dump and go crockpot video for you. And these are all pretty healthy crockpot dinner ideas. They're very easy, simple to throw together, perfect for a busy weeknight. So I think you guys are really going to like all of these recipes. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I share a lot of cooking recipes on my channel with a little bit of motherhood sprinkled in the mix. But let's go ahead and get into today's video. For this first dinner, I made a tomato, basil, and chicken pasta. This was definitely one of my favorites. I'll totally be making it again. I just sprayed my crock pot with some olive oil and then I dumped in 1 can of petite diced tomatoes. Here's about a cup of this mushroom pasta sauce. Use whatever you have on hand, will be totally fine. And then I also added in about a teaspoon of some Italian seasoning for some extra flavor. The recipe said that this was kind of a bland recipe, like in the comments section, so I did go ahead and add some extra seasonings to this recipe. Here I'm just adding in 3/4 cup of heavy cream with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to make a little slurry and mixing that together. And then I'm going to be adding that right into my crock pot and mixing that in. Once all of that heavy cream was mixed in, then I'm going to be adding in some seasonings. I added in a big scoop of minced garlic. You're going to want about 2 to 3 cloves for this recipe, about a teaspoon of salt, you can always add more later, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and then I did a full teaspoon of dried basil. I did increase the amounts for some of the seasonings on this recipe just because the comments said that it was a little bit bland, or some people thought it was, so I decided to add some extra seasoning, and I have to say this amount was about perfect. So I'm going to list out what I actually put in the description box, and then you guys can follow along. I added about 4 chicken breasts for this recipe, and I thought it was about right for the amount of pasta. So I just covered it up with the sauce mixture, cooked it on high for 4 hours, and then once it was completely done cooking, I just chopped it up or sliced it up and served it on a bed of pasta. This was really, really good. You can definitely add a little bit of salt at the end if you want to, or any other seasonings that you want, but this was a really, really good dinner. We'll definitely be making it again, and it was super easy. For this next dinner, I'm making a honey garlic chicken using some chicken thighs. So I'm spraying my crock pot with some olive oil, and then I'm just going to add the chicken right in. I believe I had 8 chicken thighs. These are bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, and I think I had about 8 of them. The recipe called for 6, but use whatever you have on hand. I definitely think you could get away with using chicken breast for this recipe too. And then I'm adding in probably close to 4 cups of baby red potatoes, a bag of baby carrots, and then I'm going to get the sauce ready. The nice thing about this sauce is that you probably already have everything at home, so you don't need to run to the store to make this. And I just measured everything right into my measuring cup, and I mixed it up in there to cut down on dishes. So this is just half a cup of some soy sauce, half a cup of honey, 1/4 cup of ketchup. You're going to want about 2 to 3 cloves of minced garlic, a teaspoon of dried basil, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. I definitely did not think it made it too spicy. And then just a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper, and then just mix all of that together. And then I just dumped that sauce all over the veggies as well as the chicken. I cooked this on high for about 3.5 hours it took in my crock pot, but the recipe says about 3 to 4 on high or 7 to 8 on low. This is what it looks like when it's done cooking. I did go ahead and take the extra step when it was done cooking to throw the chicken under the broiler. I just lined my baking sheet with some tin foil to make cleanup nice and easy. Threw the chicken on there. I put it under the broiler for about 4 to 5 minutes, and it really crisps up the skin nicely. So especially if you're somebody who actually likes to eat the skin on the chicken, I definitely wouldn't skip this step. But if you don't want to, you definitely can skip it if you want, but it did make a difference. It gave the chicken a really nice color, and it just really crisped it up. This is what the chicken looked like when it came out of the broiler. It had way more color after it was in there, and I definitely am happy that I did this. I forgot to add the green beans in towards the end of the cooking time, so I ended up boiling mine on the stove for just a couple of minutes, and then I added them into the sauce just to give them a little bit of flavor, and I served this up after a couple of minutes. It was definitely a really good dinner filled with lots of veggies, nice protein, and pretty healthy for you, so I'll probably make this again. This next recipe is a ham bone and veggie soup recipe. This is one that I've been making for years and our whole family really likes it. It has a lot of delicious flavor. Even my husband, who isn't a big fan of soup, he really likes this one. So I just had this ham bone left over from, I think it was Christmas. I always just stick them in my freezer so they last for a while. And then I'm gonna cut up all of the veggies. You can definitely play around with the amounts of veggies and everything on this recipe, but I added in a few stalks of celery, and then I have some red potatoes here that I'm just dicing up as well. I did want my potatoes on the smaller side, but of course it's just gonna depend on your cooking time and how long you actually have to cook this soup in the crock pot. But just go ahead and get all of your veggies cut up. I normally don't use baby carrots, usually I use the whole carrots, but this is what I had on hand to get used up, so that's what I'm throwing in on this day. And then of course I'm gonna want to add in a whole onion as well for lots of extra flavor. For the green beans in this recipe, I almost always add a 12-ounce bag of frozen green beans just to make things easier, but you could also use fresh. You're gonna want a can of petite diced tomato, a couple cloves of minced garlic, and then for seasonings, you're gonna do 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon dried basil, half a teaspoon of pepper, and then I don't add any salt until the end. If it needs it, I'll add it then. And then you're gonna want about 8 cups of chicken broth, and then you're just gonna let this simmer in your crock pot. The recipe says on low for 7 to 8 hours or on high for 4 to 5. I usually put mine on high and it comes out perfect. It's super delicious. Once it is actually done cooking, you can pull that ham bone out and really get all of the meat off of it. I make sure to take out any of the fattier pieces, and then I'll just add the ham back in there when it's all done. I probably ended up with a little over a pound of actual meat from this ham bone. Put it back in the soup and it was super delicious. This is one of our all-time family favorite soups. It's a really good one, full of tons of flavor, and it also has a lot of veggies in it. It's very good for warming up throughout the week for lunches and whatnot. So this is really good served with some Italian bread on the side. That's what we had on this night. I made some homemade Italian bread with it. So easy to pull together, and I promise you guys are really gonna like this one. This next recipe could not be any more simple. I'm just making some shredded taco chicken in the crock pot. This happened on a day that I had no idea what to make. I just added in a couple of frozen chicken breasts into my crock pot, a tablespoon of taco seasoning, and then about a cup of some salsa. Again, use whatever you have on hand, mild, medium, whatever you want is totally fine. And then I just cooked this on high for about 3.5 to 4 hours until my chicken was fully cooked through. Once it was all done, I just shredded it up with my hand mixer. Definitely the best way to shred chicken, by the way. Once it's done, I just served it up with all of the fresh things that needed to get used up in our fridge. And this was a really good dinner. I actually really enjoyed this, and it was a pretty healthy option, and I used up all of the fresh stuff in our fridge, so it was a win-win for us. For this next recipe, I'm making one of our family favorites. This is just a crock pot chili. I'm starting off with a pound of ground beef in my skillet with a cut up onion. I'm just gonna brown all of this up together until it's completely cooked through. And then into my slow cooker, I'm just gonna add all of the other ingredients while the beef is cooking. 1 can of petite diced tomatoes. You're gonna want a can of chili beans. You don't have to drain the sauce out of this or anything. And you can also add extra beans if you want, but my husband doesn't like beans, so I try and add not very many. A can of tomato sauce, 2 to 3 cloves of minced garlic, about a teaspoon of sugar to cut the acidity, salt and pepper to taste. I'm sorry, I don't have exact measurements here. It really just is to taste though. I like to add a little bit of Lowry's garlic salt, a little under a teaspoon of cocoa powder, and then about a heaping tablespoon of chili powder. Again, this is just to taste, but I feel like this is a pretty mild version, so about a little over a tablespoon tablespoon of the chili powder is about right for our family. And then I'm just adding that cooked ground beef in there, mixing it all together. If you feel like this is too thick, you can add another can of tomato sauce, which is what I like to do. But if you want your chili on the thick side, then just leave it as is. And then you're just gonna slow cook this on low for about 6 hours, I would say. Top it with a little bit of shredded cheese, sour cream, whatever you like on your chili. And this is a really easy recipe. Alright, well that is going to wrap up today's Crockpot video. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.